farmers, ask yourselves, does this mean family-owned farms, or family-managed farms, or family-worked farms? Now, I remember, perhaps a little unsympathetically, the farm aid thing in the United States in the 1980s. Maybe there was similar movement or concern in Canada. And a lot of the family farms that great people like Neil Young and Bob Dylan were singing about and telling us to support, these were family-owned farms. These were not worked with family labour. So the whole imagery that's implied or made explicit of, tilling the soil, getting down to the real hard work of coaxing plant life from nature is very, very misleading. I mean, a lot of so-called family grain farms in the US, family-owned, possibly family-managed, rent-in ploughing services, rent-in planters, rent-in air spraying of pesticides and herbicides, and of course rent-in combine harvesters. So it contracted out. So in what sense is that a family farm? Well, it's family-owned. It may be family-managed, often managed part-time by a farm wife or a woman member of the family that owns the farm, but it's not worked with. It's a long, long way from this classic, emotive, populist image of, the farmer as someone who tills the soil and, as I say, applies all this skill and energy and sheer muscle power, as well as brain power, in coaxing crops from the soil. And then the last chapter, I look at complexities of class. I talk about complexities of the economic sociology of class and why there are so many variations in the forms that class takes. And then I talk about politically the complexities of the political sociology of class. So, the economic sociology of class, not least in rural contexts in the countryside, it can be complex enough, messy and contradictory as to adopt what Haroon said earlier. But that's compounded when you try to look at collective action. And so I explore some of the issues to do with that, partly borrowing on Balibar. A friend of mine, actually lives in Montreal now, once wrote a satirical song that contained the lines, "Don't know nothing about Balibar, because my reading group ain't got that far." This might not mean much to some of the younger people here, but even in Dar es Salaam in the 1970s, we were very preoccupied. What exactly does Balibar mean by this long, long footnote on page 219? But Balibar said, and I find it a very useful formulation, that class relations are universal but not exclusive determinants of social and political practices in capitalism, and I try to explore what that means in relation to peasant movements and various kinds of rural politics and so on. So, how does the book meet the challenge? Well, that is for the readership to judge. What I've done in the book, and I think I've given you at least a glimpse of that, is to cast the net very wide in order to show the logic of materialist political economy across the immensely varied times and places of capitalism, world system for 500 years and so on. To enable readers to recognize and locate a materialist approach, the questions it asks, and the kinds of answers it provides. The first draft was read and commented on by 5 people I approached who responded in comradely fashion. 2 of them are among the leading Marxist agrarian scholars of my generation, give or take a few years. Another one is a kind of middle generation close friend and colleague. 4th The younger, indeed, the person I mentioned earlier, Tony Weiss, a Canadian kind of populist political economist, if you like, whose work I regard very highly and who I've been debating with. And the fifth one, in order to try and get some kind of more generational variation, is a young Italian woman who just completed a very good PhD at the University of Bologna, which I examined and asked her to read the text. And you know, they came back with useful comments that helped me, I hope, improve the final text. And perhaps, not surprisingly, the fiercest comments came from the debates within Marxism. Those were the fiercest comments. I had to find a way of dealing with those that wouldn't be incomprehensible, boring, pointless to the kind of audience that the book is written for. How did they think? How did these readers think the text might achieve what it's supposed to for its intended audience? Well, the general view was that it would meet a pressing need for an introductory university text in this area, which of course I'm very happy to announce at Trent University this evening. But they were less certain it would speak with similar effect to movements and NGO activists among its intended audience. Although that's not a straightforward question or foregone question, because you know the land movements in Latin America, Via Campesina, the MST in Brazil, they have quite a formidable organic intelligentsia. And as James Petras and others remind us, these are the children of peasant farmers who have been to university and returned to the struggle in the countryside with what they've learned and what they've thought about at university. So it's a bit more mixed. I'm not writing a book in materialist political economy of agrarian change for people whose job is administering microcredit schemes in remote rural areas, which might be a very important thing, but the skills to do that effectively are not the skills that would derive from what I'm offering in this book. And then one of these five people said to me at a certain point, "You've done enough, draw the line. You're going to drive yourself insane if you try to play around with your very limited 40,000 words anymore." And I was very grateful to him for saying that. Limited circulation, the final draft has generated further responses. That was before publication. One person said, "Well, this is certainly a consistently Leninist book." So I said, okay, I think there's a sense in which the political economy or economic sociology is Leninist, but not the political sociology. I mean, and if you mean or if you understand or misunderstand Leninism as a tradition of class purist, hence dogmatic politics, vanguard parties, etc., then I certainly distance myself very much from that in the book and have done in my work for some years. Let me say finally that while informed by my belief in the continuing relevance and validity of materialist political economy, the book doesn't take any particular normative or prescriptive stance. Now, it's quite difficult for people to always appreciate that or to handle it, because populism does have such a stance, and it's often a very attractive one.